Ruth, congratulations on the film and congratulations on your performance, which is absolutely terrific. I wondered what your reaction was when you first received the script. How did you respond to it?
Well, I had watched Clio's other work, so when I got the script through from Clio, I was very excited because I love what she does, and I think she's a very unique visual artist and filmmaker. So I wanted to work with her. But when I read it, it felt like poetry to me. It was quite sparse on the page, but the relationship between Alice and the land seemed quite clear to me, or it was definitely something that Clio was focusing on, and I knew that in her hands she'd make something quite special out of it. So it appealed to me. The physicality appealed to me. The fact that I would have to learn how to be a sheep shearer and I'd have to get mucky in the farm, that all really appealed to me. I knew I was going to have to dig deep emotionally and understand what these intrusive memories were and what this post-trauma was and how this PTSD was kind of manifesting. So all that stuff, I love complicated things, and I knew that it was going to be complicated and require a lot. And I also knew that Clio would demand truth from me, so it meant I really had to dig for the truth.
So you like a challenge?
I like a challenge, and this was a challenge.
And you mentioned the sheep shearing, and in fact that's what the film opens with, is you actually getting incredibly hands-on.
Yeah.
How did you get on with that whole experience of working with the animals, with the sheep in particular? But we also see you gutting a rabbit and all sorts of other things.
Yeah, it was obviously quite intimidating and quite scary to begin with. I went up onto a farm for 3 weeks prior, and they treated me a bit like a southern softie. They didn't think that I could do it really, and at first I was being a bit prissy. I just felt a bit scared of how do you manhandle these sheep? They're
completely
so strong.
Out of your comfort zone.
Completely out of my comfort zone. And then you have to just do it because you haven't got a choice, and actually a camera's going to be on you. So the pressure of performance is amazing. It makes you do things you would never do, and so I just had to learn and get stuck in. But we couldn't actually shear sheep for a while because it was the wrong time of year, or it was too cold. So I don't think we didn't really start doing that until a week before, really. You're really scared of nipping them because you can cut them quite easily. You've got to keep their skin taut. There's a real technique to doing it, and it was only really the week before that we got this expert sheep shearer on, who was great, called Brian, who really taught me the proper technique. And they have shoes, and you roll this sheep around your legs, and they do it in a minute. I took 10 minutes at least doing mine, but it was
not bad for a beginner.
No, not bad for a beginner. But the sweat coming off them is true sweat. They are strong, stubborn creatures, and they don't want to be manhandled, and yet they do get manhandled every day. So both Mark and I, you just learn to sort of treat them like the farmers did. But it was hard. But I knew that was vital to the piece. We had to be truthful. We had to look like we belonged in that world, and we knew what we were doing in that world.
So did you end up with incredibly soft hands because of all the lanolin and the wool?
No, that's a myth. I was out in freezing cold weather. My
chance.
Hands are like sort of...
No chance.
No chance.
You've referred to it being cold. Was it really as cold and wet and horrible as it looked when you were filming?
It was bizarre. That weather up there, it changes every 3 minutes. So
because you don't like it, you wait a minute.
Exactly, the sun comes up. We were constantly waiting for sun, cloud, or rain. It was really impossible shooting conditions because you shoot one side and it's sunny. You turn around and it's sunny every 3 minutes. It doesn't stay sunny or doesn't stay rainy. It's the weirdest weather system up there.
That is a continuity nightmare.
It's a continuity nightmare. And that particular farm, I think, because it's so open and beautiful landscapes, but the cloud that just come over and leave again. So you're just constantly in different weather systems.
And you and Mark Stanley, you play brother and sister. You share a lot of scenes together, but actually there's not a great deal of dialogue in there.
No.
So how did you go about creating that dynamic and that relationship between the two of you?
It was funny. We did a week of rehearsals prior, which we did a lot of improvisation and worked through some of the scenes that were there, and Clay actually sort of did it as a writing technique. She wanted to put some of our improvisations back on the page, which we actually ended up stripping out again in the end, because so they were more for like subtext or more for us becoming at one with each other, to be honest. And on the day, and actually in the edit, she stripped out so much more as well. I mean, there was very little on the page, and I felt that was again part of the point of the piece, was that they dealt with this trauma in different ways, and that my character was suppressed everything and barely said anything and kept it all down until the final point. And it was hard. It was frustrating and suffocating for me as an actor, and it must have been for Alice as a character. It's the same, because there's points at which you want to say, you want to be able to express, or you want to shout back, but she didn't. She had to keep holding it down. And I remember thinking, God, maybe I should just be shouting back, but no, I've got to hold it back. She holds all her trauma down. She's unable to communicate in that way, and scared of doing so, scared of how much rage is down in her. And if she lets out a bit of it, it's all going to come out. So I think she has to put a lid on it.
It's probably made worse by the fact that he's so overt in his rage, because that's all he ever seems to do.
Exactly.
Is shout.
Yeah. So the fact she can't manage that's, they're both dealing with their trauma, or they're expressing their rage in different ways. And that's what the dynamic became on the set, in a way. It was like, okay, we found that as we went on. And there were points at which I wanted to, but she couldn't. So she's got this, I think, and we decided that she has this, if she lets out that rage, she doesn't know what she's going to do with it. And what she does is she ends up killing a man when it does come out, So I think she's scared of what's inside her.
As well as making films, we're very familiar with you on television, the likes of Jane Eyre and The Affair, and of course you've been on stage as well, being Hedda Gabler. So do you prefer any one of those particular mediums?
Not really. I think I said this before. I think that theatre makes me feel empowered.
In what way?
I think it's the energy, because you're sharing an energy with how many people in an audience. It's some weird mystical thing, but it's
because it's different every time.
And it's different every night, but it's also the adrenaline of being on stage, telling a story from start to finish. And there is a communion between audience and actors in that environment, which is sort of very, it's very hard to explain, I suppose, or it's mystical. It is, and you all share an experience. So I think that their energy gives me so much food. Like, I come off on a high, and I come off, feeling empowered as a person. And I think that you don't get that so much from TV and film. I mean, TV and film about the minutiae of thought and subtleness of character and story, but to get that physical energy from other people is kind of phenomenal.
So what's next for you? More theatre?
All of it. I kind of keep mixing it up. I need to do theatre every few years because it just gives me that energy, and I think it makes me bolder in choices. But I don't have any on the immediate landscape, so I'm looking for my next piece, which will hopefully be next year sometime. But I'm doing I'm doing a piece for BBC, which is a 3-parter, and it's about my grandmother and my grandfather. So I'm playing my grandmother.
Your own personal history?
Yeah.
And when can we expect to see that?
Well, we film in April, and I don't know, end of the year, beginning of next year, probably. Something we don't know the TX date yet, but it's fascinating. And I haven't really got my head round it yet that I'd be playing my granny, but I am, yeah.
We'll look forward to that. Ruth Wilson, thank you very much indeed.
Lovely to meet you.